What's up friends, Dan here, and in today's tutorial we're going to talk about JSON Server. So I was working on a project recently where I needed a REST API backend and I didn't want to stand up a real one. So I needed something that I can just work with locally. I did some looking around and there were a lot of options out there, but JSON Server really stood out for a few reasons. So today we're going to jump in, we're going to learn how to install it, how to use it, and we'll do all of this right inside of a Vue.js application. So what are we waiting for? Let's jump on in. All right, so we're going to start here on the GitHub repository for JSON Server. There's a lot of really good information here. I would suggest going through this if you want to. If not, just kind of stick around for the tutorial and you can kind of go through this afterwards. But this is where I started learning about JSON Server. So we're going to go through this, but there's a really good free video tutorial on egghead.io. And this is just going through John Lindquist, who's one of the co-founders at egghead.io, goes through how to create some demo data with JSON Server, really using Faker and Lodash. And so we're going to use that same recipe here today. So thanks, John, for all of that information. Also, again, there's more information on how to get started with JSON Server. We're kind of going to walk through that together, but you can install this globally if you wanted to. So npm install -g JSON Server, and then you can kind of run this from wherever. We're actually going to install it right in the project just so we have it, because if I wanted to pass this off to someone else, they're going to need it to go ahead and run the server as well. And so the way JSON Server works is you basically run a command, you say JSON Server, and then you point it to a DB. And that DB is really just a JSON file with a bunch of data in it. So we could have an array of posts. Every post could have comments. Comments could belong to a profile, etc. So this is just a bunch of data in a JSON file. But what's really handy is using that data, we then get this REST API, so we can call localhost 3000/posts to get all the posts, or /post/1 to get the first post. And so just by pointing this at some data, we get this nice REST API that we can then use in our Vue applications to quickly and rapidly prototype out an application. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Again, I'll probably mention this a couple times, but there's another really great project out there called Mirage Jas. So if we head over to Mirage Jas, there's build complete front-end features even if your API doesn't exist yet. So this is really another great way to do this, to kind of create a fake backend. My only problem was one of my requirements for this project was to be able to hit this endpoint from a tool like a Postman or an Insomnia to go ahead and test out the API, which we will do today as well. And as far as I know, with Mirage, you can't do it because it kind of creates it within the application context and not an actual resource that can be hit from the outside. So I will be doing another video on that. If you want to see that soon, please go ahead and leave a comment below. But just wanted to mention Mirage, great project as well. So with that, I think what we'll do is, again, you can jump through the documentation if you want, but we're just going to go in, we're going to create a Vue application from scratch, and we'll add all the necessary bits and really start to build on this. All right, so let's jump on into the application. All right, so here I am in Terminal, and what I'm going to do is just create a new Vue project using the Vue CLI. So we're going to say Vue create, and we'll call this Hello JSON Server. And we're going to go ahead and say -b to create a bare project. And we're going to go through and manually select some features. I just wanted to, actually, I don't need router Vuex, and I think I'll just leave that with the standard selection. So we'll put that in some dedicated config files. We'll go ahead and save that, and this is going to run. Nothing special here. Going to create us a bare project called Hello JSON Server. And I'll go ahead and open up this project in Visual Studio Code. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is actually install a few dependencies. So we're going to npm install, we're going to install a couple things here. JSON Server. We're going to use a service called Faker, and we're going to use a package called Lodash. So that is going to install those 3 dependencies for us, and we're going to first use them to generate some data. So as I said before, the way JSON Server works is you can use it as part of maybe your startup script, and you can point it towards a DB, and that DB is really just a JSON file. So we could sit here and manually type out some data if we wanted to, but that is going to be a pain in the butt, especially if you wanted 100 records. So what we're going to do is use a couple of these packages that we're just installing now, like Faker and Lodash, and we're going to generate a list of 100 people that we can then use to kind of quickly prototype out our application. So that looks like it installed. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. I'm going to create a new folder over here, and we're going to call this DB. And inside this DB, I'm going to create a new file called generate.javascript. And so I'm going to copy some data here just so you can see what we're trying to do here. So what we want to end up with is some data that kind of looks like this. We would have an array of people, and inside that people array, we'd have an object, and we'd have an ID, name, avatar, phone, email, and department. So let me see if I can just kind of comment that out so we can keep it up there. And then what we'll do here is we're going to start with module.exports is equal to function. And inside there, we're going to need our Faker service. So we're going to require Faker, and we're going to need Lodash. So we're going to require Lodash. Okay. And what we're going to do is return an object. And what we're going to do in here, actually, I take that back. So I want return. And what I want to do is I'm going to create this people array. And to create that people array, I'm going to use Lodash, which is going to, there's a function in there called times. So I'm going to say, all right, I want to create 100 of these. And the function is going to get past the iteration that we're on. So that is n. So from that, I'm going to return an object for each iteration, basically. I'm going to return an object with an ID of, so n is going to start at 0 because arrays are 0 based. So I want the first ID to be 1. So I need a name. So again, we have a name up here. So this is where Faker comes in. So you can use faker.name.find. Oops. Find name. So that's going to give us a name. Avatar. Then I'm going to need a phone number. So again, we can use faker.phone.phone number. Again, that's a little bit of a different format. You can format how those numbers come out as well. Everything here is very customizable. I would suggest looking at the Faker documentation. But it really just gives you a way to create some fake data. And in cases where Faker can't do something, we can always just use JavaScript here, right? So in this case, I need a department. So I'm going to say department. And in the department, I actually want it to be one of a list. And I don't really care which one. I just want a random one. So I'm going to use a method called sample from the Lodash library, and that takes an array. So our array is just going to be customer support, engineering, and sales. So it'll just pick one of those. It doesn't matter which one. And that should give us everything we need. So I'm going to get rid of this now. We don't need that. I just wanted to keep it there for example purposes. But now this will give us what we want. We want to basically get 100 people out here with this type of data. And I really like this approach because in most of my applications where I'm trying to rapidly prototype something out, it is for specific data. And I can't just rely on some public service out there because I really need data formatted the way I need it formatted, and I need specific data. So a combination of JavaScript, some packages out there, and especially something like Faker, you can quickly prototype out some data. And so what this is going to do is generate us a JSON array. And so the way that we do that is we're actually going to go into our package.json. I'm going to create a script here and we'll call it generate. And the way this works is you're just going to say JSON Server, and you're going to point it at a DB, which is usually a JSON file, but in this case, we're going to use a JavaScript file. So we're going to say db generate.js, and I don't know why that's happening, but we should be able to run this now. So let's try and run npm run and generate. Come on, Dan. Okay, so I was able to kill the port 3000. I had something running on it already, so I'm just going to npm run generate again. And okay, so now we have localhost 3000 people is the resource that we're running on. So let's head back over to the browser and we'll just open that up. And now you can see we have this array of people, and we have an ID, name, avatar, phone, email, and then department is one of sales, customer support, or engineering. So this is doing exactly what we wanted it to do, but we also get the added benefit of it actually exposing an endpoint on a port, which is 3000, which means I can open up some of my REST client tools and go ahead and test the endpoint as well. So let's just do that really quick. Okay, so here I am in Insomnia. I'm just gonna go ahead and click new request, and I'm gonna say this is a get people request. It is a get operation. And so what we're gonna do is come up here and say localhost 3000 people. And we're just going to send, and you can see that because this is running on another port, not just within the context of our application, I'm able to hit it from a tool like Insomnia. So then I can come in here and say, all right, give me the person with the ID of 5, and go ahead and send that, and then I get just that one person. So again, that's one of the reasons I really like this approach, is being able to test this out with our REST client before we build anything out. So at this point, I would suggest maybe running through the documentation on JSON Server and look at how you can access different resources. If you were to go ahead and use like a post request to /people, you can create a new resource, and that would actually get inserted into that JSON, which is really nice. So with that, now that we understand that, we're going to take that JSON, create a people.json, and we can use that going forward in our application. Okay, so under DB, I'm going to create a new file, and we're just going to call this people.json. And I'm going to go ahead, and this JSON file starts as an object, and then we use a name for the array here. So I'm going to say this is people, and I'm going to paste in what I just copied from the browser, so that's all 100 of my people. Okay, so now what we need a way to do is we need a way to start up our local server as we start up our application, right? Because when we npm run serve, which starts our view application, we need a way to say, all right, I also want you to go ahead and run JSON Server, right? So one thing you can do here is we're going to say JSON Server db people.json. So that's our first thing that we want to do, is run JSON Server and point it at the people.json db. But in parallel, we also want to start up the view application. So here on Mac and Linux, I can use just this single ampersand, which will run these in parallel. And that will allow them to both start up. Actually, I have a really good article on this. So here's an article I wrote on how to run multiple NPM scripts in parallel. Now, this is going to be different if you're on Windows. This only works on Mac and Linux, but in this article, I have a solution. You can install another package called Npm Run All, and it will allow you to run multiple scripts in parallel. So that's an option. So go ahead and take a look at that article if you're interested in that. Both options will work here. What we just want the ability to do is run JSON Server, and then after that's done starting up, I want you to be able to run this next command, which is the normal Npm Run Serve, right? So let's save that, and let's go ahead and Npm Run Serve. So first we see localhost 3000 and our people resource is started up. And now we see our view resource is started up on localhost 8081. I think I have something else running, so I'm actually going to stop that other one. And let's just try that again. I want localhost 3000 for my API. And then localhost 8080 for my view application, right? So now if we go localhost 8080, cool, our view app is running. And if we go localhost 3000/people, awesome, our API is running. So that really gives us everything we need to build out our application. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do now that I have everything ready to go, I actually stopped the service, so I'm no longer running. I just want to start developing this application. So I'm going to create a new folder in here called components, and in components I'm going to create a new file, and we're going to call this simple list.view, and this is just going to be a simple list. We'll display this in a table, and so we'll come back to that in a second. So I like to start by giving this a name. This is simple list. And by the way, all of this code is going to be on the GitHub repository, and you can find a link to the repository below in the description. As always, anything I kind of talk about, just make sure you check the description for any relevant links. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with some data here. So I'm going to say data. And I want to start with a people array, and that is going to be initialized to an empty array. Then what I want to do is I want to actually get that data from my API. So when this component is created, so we're using the created lifecycle hook, we're going to use the fetch API, and we're going to say go out to localhost 3000/people, and that's a get, so I don't have to do anything else there. When that promise is returned, I want you to get the response, and I'm going to return the JSON from that. Then that is also going to return a promise. So when that comes back, I want that data, and I'm going to set this .people equal to data. So that should give us what we need to begin. Then what I'm going to do up here is in my template, I'm going to start with a table. We'll gothead, trow, th, and we need a name. We need a email. We need a phone, and we need a department. All right. I think that's it. So now we have a t-body, a t-row, and inside here a td. So in the t-rows where we're going to iterate over every person in our people array. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and say v4, and we're going to say person in people, and we need a key. So we have the person.id. And so every time we loop through, we're going to display out some data. So we're going to say person.name. We're going to say person.email. We're going to say person.phone. And we're going to say person.department. Think department, phone, email, name. Looks like I spelled everything correctly. If you watch my videos, you know I'm terrible at spelling, so always need to double check that. Okay, so far so good. I'm just gonna get some spacing here. just so we can read it. Okay, so now back in my app, I'm going to just start with a new view, and we will, actually we can just import that, right? So we can say import our simple list from components, simple list, and we can say components. We're going to use simple list, and finally we're going to use this in our template here. All right, so now we should be able to go ahead and run our application. So I'm going to npm run serve, and we should see our API start up on localhost 3000, and there's our view application. So I'm going to jump back to the browser, refresh, and now we can see our table of data being displayed. So we have our headings here of name, email, phone, and department, and then I have 100 rows of data of just some random data that we populated at the beginning of this tutorial. So just a really great way to get up and running, to be able to display some data in an application. And if you're new to Vue, a great way to kind of play with an API that you have control over as far as what data goes. And it's local. Again, a lot of benefits to this, but we're able to display our 100 records here in a table. So I thought I'd do one more thing here today, and that is create a little bit better looking of a component. And to do so, we're going to use Tailwind. So I've been using Tailwind a lot more lately, and I'm really starting to enjoy it. And with the addition of Tailwind UI with all of the component library, it just allows me to quickly create really nice looking UIs without having to think about things like responsiveness or just typography, anything that I don't think about as a developer that have some designers have really put a lot of time into. So this isn't a pitch for Tailwind. I just want to show you another view that we could create another component. So to get started, I'm going to actually use the Vue CLI, and I'm going to add the plugin called Tailwind, and this is going to get us set up without having to basically go through the manual installation of getting it and wiring it up into our Vue application. So this is really going to do this for us. So I'm going to run through. It's going to say, do you want to create a config? And I actually don't, so I'm just going to say no. And so what that does here in main is imports, oops, I don't know why it came in twice. So here in our assets, we have Tailwind CSS. So that looks good. So what I want to do is go into components. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this cardlist.vue. And what I'm going to do is just copy and paste some stuff in here so you don't have to watch me type all this out. But essentially it's the same thing, right? So we're using CSS grid inside of Tailwind to create a 4-column grid. We're iterating over the people array, and for each one we're displaying their avatar now, their name, department, email, and phone. And we're just using some Tailwind styles to create a really nice card. And we're doing the same thing down here that we did in our simple list. So now what I want to do is go back to app.vue. I'm going to change this simple list to card list, and we'll change this to card, and then I'm going to, let's throw some styles around this just so I have a nice background and some padding. So let's save that. Let's go ahead and try and run this. So npm run serve, and see if we could do so without error. Okay, so let's go back to the browser, localhost 8080. And cool, now I'm getting these nice, really looking cards where I have the avatar, the name, the department, the email address, and the phone number. And again, this is all data that we're just pulling in from that Faker service that we used to generate those 100 different records. As we can scroll down, we can see all this. Again, this would allow us to really start to build out a CRUD application with people, right? We could click into the details for a particular person. Maybe we can add a bio to them, so we have like paragraphs of text. we could do some really nice stuff with this. And this is really a quick way to get up and running and prototype out our application. All right, so question of the day. What are some of your favorite resources out there for mocking out a REST API? I would love to hear from you, so I'll put that question below. Please comment and let me know. If you found value in this video, please go ahead and leave me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and as always, friends, happy coding.